There says, within every human being a power so magnificent, so transformative, that when properly harnessed it can reshape not just your destiny, but the very fabric of your reality. This power is not mystical. Though its effects seem miraculous, it is not reserved for the gifted few, though few choose to develop it. It is not luck, though those who master it appear blessed by fortune itself. This power is self-control, and it operates according to 8 immutable principles that I will share with you today. But understand this from the very beginning. What I am about to reveal is not mere theory. These are not pleasant philosophies to discuss over coffee. These are the battle-tested truths that separate the victorious from the defeated, the prosperous from the struggling, the fulfilled from the forever searching. Self-control is the difference between the man who dreams and the man who achieves, between the woman who wishes and the woman who conquers. And here is the first truth that will revolutionize your understanding of human potential. Every single moment of your life, you are making a choice. Most people believe they are victims of circumstance, prisoners of their impulses, slaves to their emotions. They could not be more wrong. In every instant, in every breath, in every heartbeat, you are exercising the most profound freedom that exists, the freedom to choose your response. This is the first principle of willpower, the principle of conscious choice. But conscious choice is not what most people think it is. It is not the dramatic moment when you decide to quit smoking or start exercising. Those moments are important, but they are not where true self-control lives. True self-control lives in the microscopic decisions, the split-second choices that happen thousands of times each day. It lives in the moment when you feel anger rising and choose your words carefully instead of speaking in rage. It lives in the instant when you feel the pull of distraction and choose to focus instead. It lives in the fraction of a second when you feel the urge for immediate gratification and choose to wait for something better. Most people make these choices unconsciously, and that is precisely why most people live unconscious lives. They are reactive rather than creative, responsive rather than responsible. But you have the power to be different. You have the power to become conscious of these micro choices and to make them deliberately. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. You begin to experience what philosophers call agency, what psychologists call self-efficacy, and what I call the awakening of your true power. Because when you realize that you are always choosing, you realize that you are always in control, not control of external circumstances. Mind you, the weather will still change. People will still disappoint you. Unexpected challenges will still arise. But you will have something far more valuable than control over circumstances. You will have control over yourself. And this brings us to the second principle, one that reveals why most people fail in their attempts at self-improvement. They want the rewards now, but they are unwilling to wait for them. This is the principle of delayed gratification, and it is perhaps the most crucial skill you can develop in your entire lifetime. Scientists have studied this principle extensively, and their findings are remarkable. Children who can delay gratification, who can wait for a larger reward instead of taking a smaller one immediately, are more successful in virtually every area of life. They have better relationships, higher incomes, greater health, deeper satisfaction. Here's what the scientists did not tell you. Read, gratification is not about denying yourself pleasure. It is about choosing better pleasure, deeper pleasure, more lasting pleasure. The person who exercises instead of watching television is not sacrificing pleasure for pain. They are choosing the pleasure of strength, energy, and confidence over the temporary pleasure of passive entertainment. The person who saves money instead of spending it impulsively is not denying themselves enjoyment. They are choosing the enjoyment of security, freedom, and future opportunities over the momentary enjoyment of acquisition. The person who studies instead of socializing is not choosing pain over pleasure. They are choosing the pleasure of growth, achievement, and expanded possibilities over the immediate pleasure of casual companionship. This is the key insight that transforms everything. Every act of self-control is not a sacrifice, it is an investment. You are not giving up something good for something bad. You are giving up something temporary for something permanent, something small for something significant, something immediate for something ultimate. But to make this transformation in your thinking, you must first understand how your mind works. Your brain is not designed for the modern world. It evolved over millions of years in an environment of scarcity, where immediate pleasures were rare and therefore valuable. Sugar was scarce, so we developed an intense craving for it. Safety was uncertain, so we developed a strong drive for immediate gratification. Social connection was limited, so we developed powerful needs for approval and belonging. But now you live in a world where sugar is abundant, safety is generally assured, and social connection is available at the touch of a screen. Your ancient brain is constantly being triggered by modern stimuli, creating impulses that served our ancestors but sabotage us. Understanding this is crucial because it allows you to see your impulses for what they really are. They are not commands. They are not requirements. They are simply biological signals that you can observe, understand, and choose to follow or ignore. This awareness leads us to the third principle, the principle of mental rehearsal. Your mind cannot distinguish between what you vividly imagine and what you actually experience. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. When you imagine performing an action, the same neural pathways fire as when you actually perform that action. When you visualize yourself succeeding, your brain literally practices success. When you imagine yourself failing, your brain rehearses failure. This gives you an extraordinary tool for developing self-control. You can mentally rehearse the moments when your willpower will be tested. You can imagine yourself facing temptation and choosing wisely. You can visualize yourself staying calm under pressure, persevering through difficulty, maintaining your standards when others lower theirs. But mental rehearsal must be specific to be effective. You cannot simply imagine yourself as successful in some vague general way. You must see yourself making specific choices in specific situations. See yourself at the grocery store, passing by the junk food aisle without stopping. See yourself at the party, declining the drink and enjoying the conversation instead. See yourself in your office, choosing to work on the important project instead of checking social media. See yourself in bed, getting up at the first sound of your alarm instead of hitting snooze. The more detailed your mental rehearsal, the more prepared you will be when these situations arise in real life, and they will arise. This brings us to the fourth principle, one that most people completely overlook in their quest for self-improvement. They focus on strengthening their willpower while ignoring the environment that constantly tests it. This is like trying to stay dry while standing in the rain. It is possible, but it is far more difficult than necessary. The fourth principle is the principle of environmental design. Your environment is always influencing your behavior, whether you realize it or not. The foods in your kitchen influence what you eat. The apps on your phone influence how you spend your time. The people in your life influence your attitudes and decisions. The books on your shelf influence your thoughts and perspectives. You cannot eliminate all environmental influences, nor would you want to, but you can be intentional about creating an environment that supports your goals rather than undermines them. If you want to eat healthier, fill your kitchen with healthy foods and remove the unhealthy ones. If you want to read more, place books in prominent locations and move your television to a less convenient spot. If you want to exercise regularly, lay out your workout clothes the night before and find an accountability partner. If you want to develop better financial habits, Set up automatic transfers to your savings account and unsubscribe from promotional emails. Environmental design is not about creating a sterile, temptation-free world that is neither possible nor desirable. It is about tilting the odds in your favor, making good choices easier and bad choices harder. It is about working with your human nature instead of against it. But even the best environment cannot substitute for inner strength, which brings us to the fifth principle. Just as physical muscles grow stronger when they are challenged, your willpower grows stronger when it is exercised. This is the principle of progressive resistance. Most people approach self-control like a sprint, when it should be approached like strength training. They try to make massive changes overnight, exhaust their willpower reserves, and then wonder why they fail. The wiser approach is to start small and gradually increase the challenge. If you want to improve your diet, do not eliminate all your favorite foods at once. Start by adding one healthy meal each day. If you want to reduce your screen time, do not go cold turkey. Start by putting your phone in another room for 1 hour each evening. The key is consistency, not intensity. A small action performed daily is infinitely more valuable than a large action performed sporadically. And as you consistently choose discipline over impulse, something remarkable happens. What once required enormous effort begins to feel natural. What once seemed impossible becomes routine. You develop what I call disciplinary momentum, where each act of self-control makes the next act easier. But this progression is not always smooth, which brings us to the sixth principle. Emotions are the great disruptor of self-control. When you are angry, you say things you later regret.
When you are anxious, you seek comfort in harmful ways. When you are sad, you abandon your standards and settle for less than you deserve. This is why the sixth principle, the principle of emotional regulation, is so critical to your success. Most people believe they cannot control their emotions. But this is another dangerous myth. You cannot control whether emotions arise, but you absolutely can control how you respond to them. Emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent residents. They come and go like weather patterns. You can observe them, understand their message, and choose your response accordingly. The key is to create space between the emotion and your action. When you feel anger rising, pause and breathe deeply. When you feel anxiety building, acknowledge it without being controlled by it. When you feel sadness overwhelming you, allow it to be present without letting it dictate your choices. This space, this pause, is where your power lives. In that moment between stimulus and response, you have the freedom to choose who you want to be. But emotional regulation is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending they do not exist. It is about experiencing them fully while maintaining your ability to choose your actions. It is about being with your emotions without being controlled by them. And this skill, perhaps more than any other, determines the quality of your relationships, the success of your career, and the depth of your personal satisfaction.
Because when you can remain centered in the midst of emotional storms, when you can think fairly, even when you feel strongly, when you can act wisely, even when you feel pressured, you become a person that others admire, trust, and want to follow. But emotional regulation, like all these principles, requires a foundation of something deeper. It requires knowing why you are exercising self-control in the first place. This brings us to the seventh principle, the principle of purpose alignment. Self-control without purpose is like a ship without a destination. It may be seaworthy, but it will never reach port. You must know not just what you want to control, but why you want to control it. What is the vision that drives your discipline? What is the dream that makes delayed gratification worthwhile? What is the goal that transforms sacrifice into investment? Without clear purpose, self-control feels like deprivation. With clear purpose, it feels like progress. Without meaningful goals, discipline feels like punishment. With inspiring objectives, it feels like privilege. The clearer your purpose, the stronger your willpower becomes. When you know exactly why you are making difficult choices, those choices become easier to make. When you understand how your daily decisions contribute to your ultimate vision, you find strength you never knew you had. But purpose alone is not enough. You must also align your daily actions with your deepest values. If you value health but consistently choose convenient over nutritious foods, you create internal conflict that drains your willpower. If you value growth but spend your free time on mindless entertainment, you generate inner tension that exhausts your mental resources.
If you value relationships but prioritize work over family time, you create a disconnect between your stated priorities and your actual behavior. This misalignment is not just ineffective, it is destructive. It creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, a state of internal conflict that makes every decision more difficult. When your actions align with your values, however, something beautiful happens. You tap into a source of energy that seems unlimited. You find motivation that feels effortless. You discover strength that surprises even you. This is because alignment creates what philosophers call authenticity, psychologists call congruence, and I call living from your core. When you live from your core, self-control stops feeling like control and starts feeling like expression. You are not forcing yourself to be someone you are not. You are allowing yourself to be who you truly are. But even with perfect alignment, even with clear purpose, even with environmental support and emotional regulation, you will face moments when your willpower feels depleted. This is natural, normal, and nothing to be concerned about. It simply means you need the eighth and final principle, the principle of recovery and renewal. Your willpower is like a muscle in another important way. Just as your physical muscles need rest to grow stronger, your mental muscles need restoration to maintain their power. You cannot exercise self-control indefinitely without taking time to recharge. Willpower uses this willpower recovery does not require days or weeks. It can happen in minutes if you know what to do. Physical movement restores mental energy. A brief walk can renew your ability to concentrate. Deep breathing replenishes your capacity for emotional regulation. Meditation refills your reservoir of inner calm. Adequate sleep rebuilds your foundation for good decision making. Proper nutrition provides the fuel your brain needs for self-control. Connection with people you care about reminds you why your goals matter. Time in nature puts your challenges in perspective and restores your sense of possibility. These are not luxuries to be enjoyed when everything else is complete. They are necessities to be prioritized if you want everything else to be possible. The person who is too busy to rest will soon be too tired to succeed. The person who is too focused on goals to maintain relationships will find their goals empty when achieved. The person who is too disciplined to allow for renewal
will find their discipline eventually broken by exhaustion. Recovery and renewal are not breaks from the work of self-control. They are essential parts of it. Now you understand the 8 principles, but understanding is not enough. Knowledge without application is merely entertainment. You must take these principles from your mind into your life, from theory into practice, from possibility into reality. And the best way to begin is to choose one principle, just one, and commit to mastering it over the next 30 days. If you choose conscious choice, spend the next month becoming aware of your micro-decision. Notice when you are reacting automatically and pause to choose deliberately. If you choose delayed gratification, identify one area where you consistently choose immediate pleasure over long-term benefit and practice waiting.
If you choose mental rehearsal, spend 5 minutes each morning visualizing yourself successfully navigating the challenges you expect to face that day. If you choose environmental design, identify the biggest temptations in your physical space and modify your environment to support your goals. If you choose progressive resistance, pick one small habit you want to develop and commit to it for just 5 minutes daily. If you choose emotional regulation, practice the pause between feeling and action, creating space for conscious choice even in emotional moments. If you choose purpose alignment, clarify why your goals matter to you and connect every difficult choice to that deeper meaning. If you choose recovery and renewal, schedule specific times for restoration and treat them as importantly as you treat your work commitments. Whichever principle you choose, commit to it completely. Do not dabble, do not experiment casually. Dedicate yourself to mastering one principle thoroughly rather than practicing all principles superficially. Because here is what will happen when you truly master even one of these principles. Your confidence will grow. Not the shallow confidence that comes from external achievements, but the deep confidence that comes from knowing you can count on yourself. Your relationships will improve. When you have better control over your emotions and reactions, you become easier to be around, more trustworthy, more reliable. Your performance will increase, whether in your career, your health, your finances, or your personal development. Self-control is the foundation of all achievement. Your satisfaction will deepen.
There is a special joy that comes from living according to your own standards, rather than being controlled by impulses and circumstances. But most importantly, you will discover who you really are beneath all the reactive patterns, automatic behaviors, and unconscious habits. You will meet the person you were meant to be before the world told you who you should be. And that person, that authentic self, has capabilities you have never imagined, strength you have never accessed, and potential you have never explored. This is not motivational speak. This is the truth that successful people throughout history have discovered and applied, from ancient philosophers to modern entrepreneurs, from great athletes to respected leaders, from loving parents to inspiring teachers. The people who make a positive difference in the world are those who have learned to control themselves. They understand that external success begins with internal discipline. They know that you cannot lead others until you can lead yourself. They recognize that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your choices, and the quality of your choices is determined by your level of self-control. But perhaps the most important truth of all is this: you already have everything you need to begin. You do not need perfect circumstances. You do not need more time, more money, more support, or more favorable conditions. You need only the willingness to start where you are with what you have right now. The principles I have shared with you are not complex, but they are profound. They do not require special talent, but they do require consistent application.
They're not easy, but they are simple, and they work for anyone who works with them. The question is not whether these principles will transform your life. The question is whether you will apply them long enough to experience that transformation. The choice, as always, is yours. But understand this clearly. If you choose to apply these principles, if you commit to developing genuine self-control, if you dedicate yourself to becoming the master of your own mind and emotions, you will join the ranks of those rare individuals who shape their own destiny. You will discover that luck is not random but responsive, that success is not accidental but inevitable, that happiness is not dependent on circumstances but available in any moment you choose to access it. The power to transform your life is not coming someday. It is not waiting for better circumstances. It is not dependent on other people changing or external conditions improving. The power to transform your life is available right now in this moment in your next choice. Exercise that power. Apply these principles. Trust the process, and prepare to be amazed by what you are capable of achieving when you master the art of self-control. The future you want is not just possible. It is inevitable. Once you align yourself with these timeless principles of human potential, your journey toward mastery begins with your very next decision. Make it a good one.